Hey, what's going on, guys? The Horror Man back, counting down my top 15 camp slasher films. So this video comes as sort of a surprise because I wasn't really planning on doing this. But it's Friday the 13th and I figured, why not? I just finished posting my Friday the 13th collection video, so if you guys haven't watched that, please go back and check that out when you're done with this video. But for now, I'll be counting down my top 15 favorite camp slasher films. As we all know, Friday the 13th is probably the most popular slasher film to take place at a camp. Camp Crystal Lake, of course. But there are a lot of other slasher films that also have a camp setting. If a movie does not take place at a camp, then you won't see it on this list. I will also not be including any sequels in this list. As always, I will be starting with my least favorite and working my way up to my favorite camp slasher film. Now, before I get to my countdown, I couldn't do a video like this without mentioning Zeke the Plumber. I'm not sure how many of you will remember the show Salute Your Shorts. It was a 90s Nickelodeon show that focused on a group of campers at Camp Anawana. In the second episode of the show, they tell a ghost story about Zeke the Plumber, who basically stalks people with their deepest fears. It's a pretty creepy episode for a kid's show, and it's cheesy and fun, but there's definitely some creepy moments in it. And if you do remember the show, you probably remember that episode, and I'm sure Zeke the Plumber is burned into your mind. So just wanted to give that a quick mention for nostalgia's sake. So if you guys do remember the show and you remember Zeke the Plumber, comment below. Just let me know that you remember it too. But now, onto my list of my top 15 favorite camp slasher films. Coming in at number 15 is Camp Blood. Now, this isn't a terrible film. It's cheesy, it's low budget, and it definitely shows. But it's a good time. It focuses on two couples who go to Camp Blood not knowing the legend behind it, and they're stalked and killed, one by one, by a killer in a clown mask. There are a few sequels to this one, and they all look very low budget, but, as I said, they're entertaining enough. So, there it is at number 15 in my top 15 favorite camp slasher films. At number 14, Bloody Murder. Now, you may remember that I included the sequel, Bloody Murder 2, in my top 20 favorite modern-day slasher film video, and I still feel that that's the better film. But as I said, I will not be including sequels in this list, so here's the original. It's the introduction to Trevor Morehouse, a killer who blatantly rips off Jason Voorhees and even Leatherface in the first film anyway. It's worth a watch. It's not as good as the second one, but if you want to watch the second one, it's always good to watch the first. So here it is, Bloody Murder, number 14. Coming in at number 13 is Stage Fright. Now, the only thing that this has in common with the original Stage Fright is the title, because this is a very, very, very loose remake, if you could even call it that. This one takes place at a performing arts camp where the participants are killed off one by one. Big surprise, huh? Anyway, it's still interesting. It's a good movie. As far as modern day slashers go, I definitely enjoyed this one. This got some musical numbers in here, some comedy, and some good kills overall. So it was definitely worthy enough to make this list, and it comes in at number 13. At number 12 is Camp Dread. Now, this is another one that made my top 20 favorite modern-day slasher film list, and I already talked about it a bit in that one, so I won't say too much about it here. It stars Danielle Harris and Eric Roberts. As I've said many times, Danielle Harris is my favorite scream queen of all time, so for that reason alone, I had to include it on this list. As far as modern-day camp slashers go, this one's really good. It has some good kills in this one, a good camp setting, and I definitely enjoyed it, so here it is at number 12. Coming in at number 11 is The Prey. Now, this one just popped up in one of my rare movies, not on DVD or Blu-ray videos. This is the unofficial DVD release that I have. And I mentioned, in that video that the killer in this one has sort of different intentions. You'd have to kind of see it to believe it. Again, group of kids in the woods. This one is actually filmed on location in the Rocky Mountains, so that sort of adds to this one. You know, that they're being killed off one by one by a killer with an axe. You know, big surprise by the cover there. But definitely enjoyable, a lot of fun, and it's a shame that this doesn't have an official DVD or Blu-ray release. Into the top 10, at number 10, is Just Before Dawn. Now, I feel like this one has gotten a lot of mentions recently in the slasher tag videos. So, again, this is another one that I won't say too much about. I think everybody pretty much knows about this one at this point. You know, you got another killer in the woods. Good final girl in this one. It actually came up a few times in the slasher tag, so definitely worth checking out if you're into that sort of thing as well. And just worth checking out in general. You know, just a fun slasher. It's one of those slashers that's sort of, you know, middle level for me. You know, it's not one of my favorites, but it's certainly not one of the worst that I've seen. So that's why I'm including it here at number 10. At number 9 is The Final Terror. Now, I kind of went back and forth between this one and Just Before Dawn of where to rank those two. And to be honest, the only thing that gave this one the edge is that it stars Joey Pants, Joe Pantoliano, who, you know, I'm a fan of his work. You know, I love him on Sopranos. I love him in The Goonies. I love him in Memento. You know, pretty much anything that he's in. And he's in this movie, so that's always cool to see him, you know, in an 80s slasher film. But again, another group of people in the woods being killed off by you know, a merciless killer. And yeah, I like the setting in this one. You know, it's darker in a way, grittier, I guess. So that kind of adds to it as well. But anyway, at number 9 in my top 15 camp slashers. Coming in at number 8 is Cheerleader Camp. Now, this movie is a blast. It's funny, it's cheesy, it has some good kills in this one. It's just everything you'd expect from an 80s slasher film. It's got a lot of gratuitous nudity. I mean, it even has a quote from Joe Bob Briggs on the back. It says, "We're talking some serious cheerleader meat." So, you know, if it's a movie that Joe Bob Briggs comments on, you kind of know what to expect. Like I said, it's a cheesy good time, and I almost rank this one higher, but, you know, I mean, overall, it's not a great film. It's just fun, it's entertaining, and I mean, I guess that's what we look for in movies, so definitely a worthy place for it here at number 8. Coming in at number 7 is Berserker. This is another movie that appeared in one of my rare movies not on DVD or Blu-ray videos, because it's never gotten an official US DVD or Blu-ray release. And it's definitely a shame, because as I mentioned in that video, it's a pretty sought after VHS tape, especially among slasher fans, because they seem to enjoy this one. This one's a bit different. It focuses on a Nordic legend of the Berserker who has the snout of a bear and basically goes around ripping everybody apart. Definitely a fun film. Too bad there's no official release of this one, because it's highly underrated, just because a lot of people, you know, don't know about it. But I do, and I enjoy it, and that's why it's number 7 in my top 15 favorite camp slasher films. Number 6, the inspiration for this video, the classic Friday the 13th. What is there to say about this one? You know a lot of people might be thinking this should probably be higher on this list, but if I was including sequels, then yeah, I probably would have maybe Friday the 13th Part 3 higher in this ranking. But as far as the original, you know, I kind of made my opinion known in my ranking of the Friday the 13th franchise video. So you guys know where I stand on this. I definitely love this movie. It's a classic. I enjoy watching it. But, you know, it's not my favorite in the franchise. And with that being said, it's not my favorite camp slasher film, because there are actually 5 more ahead of it, because this right here is only number 6. And at number 5 is Madman. Now, I've been mentioning this movie quite often recently in my slasher tag video. Also, the Blu-ray edition came up in my latest Blu-ray, DVD, and VHS update. But here it is again. As I mentioned before, I find this slasher to be very underrated. You know, as far as camp slashers go, definitely. You know, a lot of people think of Friday the 13th and Sleepaway Camp and even The Burning before they think of Madman, but, you know, I do love this film. You know, I don't love it enough, obviously, to be any higher than number 5, but I definitely enjoy it. I specifically enjoy the camp in this film. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. There's nothing really special about it. The scene when the scene when the girl's hiding in the refrigerator, you know, that scene always cracks me up. I love that. I don't know. I love that cabin or whatever that she's in. It's creepy. There's just something creepy about this film. And I'll say it again. The song at the end of this movie just gets stuck in your head for days after you watch it. So Madman, number 5 in my top 15. And number 4 is Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Now, I usually don't consider this one to be a slasher film, but it's been making a lot of appearances in the slasher tag video responses, so I guess it is. I mean, I know Andrew Ballina actually included this in his top 20 modern day slasher film video, and I think Jason from Horrific Nightmares may have included this as well in his top 25. I could be wrong. Pretty sure he included it too, though. So yeah, you know what? If they include it as slasher film, if they consider it to be a slasher film, then I guess I will too. Because how else do you really qualify? Do you really, what else do you consider this movie if it's not a slasher film? This is probably my favorite horror comedy overall. I absolutely love this movie. It is such a blast. I have such a good time watching it, and yeah, I mean, I guess it is a slasher film, and if I'm considering it to be a slasher film, it has to be pretty high on my list because of how much I love it. So, here it is at number 4, Tucker and Dale versus Evil. At number 3 is The Cabin in the Woods. Now, this is another one that I usually don't actually consider to be a slasher film, but again, I guess it is. I mean, how else would you classify this movie? So yeah, I guess I'm being lenient with the word slasher, but it's a camp slasher to me. It's these kids that go camping, they go into a cabin, obviously, and they're being slashed off one by one. So I definitely consider this one to be a slasher. It definitely has, unique elements to this one, of course. I absolutely love this film. This was in my top 20 favorite horror films of all time, if you guys have seen that video. But yeah, it just, again, if I'm going to consider this one to be a slasher, then I definitely need it high on my list. So that's why it's at number 3 in my top 15. And my second favorite camp slasher film, Sleepaway Camp. Now, up until recently, I probably would have considered this to be my favorite camp slasher, but I recently revisited another one that I do like a bit more. Before I get to that one, though, let me talk a little bit about Sleepaway Camp. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen it. We all know the crazy ending in this one. Such a fantastic ending, but this slasher film really has it all. It has genuine comedy mixed in. Some slasher films have comedy that's really not funny. It's kind of like that those humorless jokes, and it's just too cheesy, too corny. I feel like, there are some genuinely funny scenes in this movie. And it's not over the top funny where you're kind of taken out of the fact that it's a horror film, just funny enough that it's enjoyable, and has the right amount of cheese. You got good kills in this one, some really original kills, a great killer, a great setting, in the camp, of course, some gratuitous nudity, everything that a slasher film needs. So I love Sleepaway Camp, I really do, but it's not quite my favorite camp slasher, because my number 1 favorite camp slasher film is The Burning. Man, do I love this movie. I usually show the Scream Factory Blu-ray, so I figured I'd throw the MGM DVD into the mix with the terrible cover art. But, it's the same movie, and I love this movie. I rewatched this one last week, and, I've seen this movie many times. Hadn't watched it in a while, but for whatever reason, I don't remember liking it as much. Watching it this time around, I absolutely loved it. Now, I always joke about the young George Costanza in this with hair, Jason Alexander, of course. But, he's probably my favorite character in the movie. He's actually pretty funny in this one. I like the fact that he's kind of playing a different role. He's kind of the popular kid in camp, if you will. At least, he's well liked, at least, So, I mean, I enjoy that aspect of it. You have Mark Ratner from Fast Times at Ridgemont High in this one. And that's one of my favorite films of all time. So that's cool seeing him in a different kind of role. The Cropsy Maniac is just a fantastic slasher, and it's too bad that this movie didn't have any sequels, because I really think it would have been successful. I also find it funny, I don't know if you guys ever noticed, if you guys are Full House fans, but in the season premiere of season 7 Full House, the girls are coming back from camp, and there's a scene in it where they talk about the Cropsy Maniac. They go back to camp because Michelle loses the pet bunny or something, and there's a whole scene where they're afraid that the Cropsy Maniac is after them. I always thought that was pretty funny, because obviously it relates to The Burning. But yeah, just pretty much everything that I said about Sleepaway Camp, this does slightly better. So it does have some comedy in it as well, maybe slightly better comedy. Has great kill scenes in it as well. Maybe slightly better kill scenes. I don't know. Sleepaway Camp, that's tough. You know, it has a great killer in Cropsy. As I said, he's definitely someone that could have gone on for many sequels. You know, kind of like a Jason Voorhees character. You know, the once again the gratuitous nudity in this typical slasher fear. You know, great. Probably better in this than Sleepaway Camp. So it sort of one ups everything on Sleepaway Camp, I guess. Yeah, and that's why it's my favorite camp slasher film of all time. The Burning, I absolutely love it. So that's it, guys, for my top 15 favorite camp slasher films. I hope you enjoyed this video. As I said, it was sort of impromptu. I wasn't planning on doing it, but in honor of Friday the 13th, I thought it would be a great idea. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed filming it. Comment below. Let me know what you think about these movies. Let me know what you would pick as your favorite camp slasher film. And as always, if you feel up to it, film a video response because I'd love to check it out. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it.